Hello, everyone. This is Ken Quigley from Keystroke, reporting to you from the sunny climates of Hilton Head, South Carolina today. Hopefully the audio and the internet holds up for us. I'm very excited to cover this because this is one of the most, in my opinion, like in the top 3 most powerful features available in ActAdvantage. But before we begin, let's cover a few housekeeping issues. This session will be recorded. Please mute yourself to avoid any interruptions in the session, and we will host a Q&A at the end. So I will, for most part, mute everyone. I'll be the sole participant, and at the end, I'll open up the mics. We'll have a Q&A. If you have any questions in the interim, please put them into the chat channel, okay? So just as kind of a bit of a background, last July, we hosted a webinar on the purpose and parts of project management features in ActAdvantage. It was for those people who needed to be sold on the value of using project management software and those who needed to understand the component parts. Today is going to be different. Today is less theoretical and more practical, as we intend to focus on the best practices for getting the most from project management for ACT. Okay. Before we begin, though, we should understand how projects integrates with ACT, because the strength of projects is not that it tries to be the best of breed and compete with all the well-known products out there, rather that it enhances the efficiency and collaboration it achieves through that integration. So it's important to understand it, okay? So firstly, in the cloud environment, there is a menu item, and I'll get to this in a bit once we get through the introduction, that shows the additional features in ActAdvantage with the menu item project management. That is available in ActAdvantage Pro and Ultimate. Secondly, when you create a project, which we'll do shortly, you'll have the option to create a corresponding opportunity in ACT to reflect that project. Creating a link for that project enhances the integration with ACT. All phases in the project are expressed as products, which in turn reflect the costs of the nested task. That's why we put it the phases in there, so they can capture all of the costs of the nested task. And we're going to show you that. Projects also records all comments as notes in the opportunity. Projects will also record histories when changing the status of a task or phase when there's an opportunity. When a task is completed, it clears the activity in ACT, and I'll show you how to create those. No history or notes are generated without a linked opportunity. However, without an opportunity, you can still achieve a number of really time-saving functions. My favorite is importing the users and contacts into projects as participants, and we'll cover that. And then creating activities in ACT from the tasks in the projects and clearing them, and then when you clear them in projects, it clears them in ACT. So some of the features we'll be covering today are not in the current production build of project management for ACT. We'll be using our test environment, our beta environment, to demo the latest features. There are 3 main new features in the beta currently, and I will be calling out each of them as we go through the demo. Okay, you're going to see this presentation is going to be structured by the essential parts, and then we'll get into the additional features. But it's important to understand what we have to build a project, okay? The first is, what is the goal of the project? The second, what are the phases of the project, okay? The third, what are the tasks within each phase? So the phase is how you segment the project, and we'll get into that. And then what are the tasks within each phase? The next and second last is who will complete each task? And then finally, when is the deadline for completion, or is there one? Because you don't always need to have a firm deadline, but that's the beauty of project management. You can use project management to either arrive at a deadline or work within one, okay? This doesn't cover all the details, but it's hard to execute a project without this list. Now, as you'll see during this demo, other project details can be how long each step will take, when will each step happen and in what order? Who are the participants? What obstacles may exist and what milestones should be accounted for. These are all important details, but can be added to the planning process after it's started. Okay, and with that done, let's get into the demo. Okay, so here is the project screen. Now, if you were to get into Active Vantage, you would come here. As I said, you would click on additional features. And then you're going to see project management. And you would see a dashboard or project home page similar to what we'll be working with. But because I'm going to be demoing new features, we're going to work within this beta environment. Okay, so the project management dashboard displays all the tasks. So once you go in here, you'll see all of these, okay, along with the owner, whether or not they're active, the number of tasks, the number of members, and the number of contacts, okay? And we'll get into the distinction of those in a minute, okay? You'll see here that you can edit a task. Okay, and this will show you not the components of the task, but the basic structure of it. So you're going to see the name, who's the project owner, okay, and is it active? What's the currency code? Because there is a cost associated with that. And then remember I said about whether or not there's an opportunity, an associated opportunity, you can create it at this point. So you're going to see throughout this that you don't have to worry about getting everything in the right order. You can always go back and retrofit it based on needs as they occur. Okay. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you jump into a project that is in production right now. Now, one of the features that we've got that's going to be in Active Vantage over the next couple of months is a help desk feature, support desk, ticketing system, things like that. So what we've done is we've built out, you can see all the participants, you can see the phases, okay, you can see the tasks here, all broken down into different segments that make sense to us, okay? And then we can see the schedule, okay, as it's broken down. Okay, now in this case, what we did is we actually had, and all these gray sections you'll see here are weekends, so we can schedule around those. And then these are representing the phases. This little diamond section is a milestone, and I'll get to that later on in the presentation. But this allows you to very, very clearly see the timeline for it. So what I did in this case is I built out all the tasks. I did the assignments. I was able to see what tasks had to be completed concurrently, what tasks had to be could be completed concurrently, and then which ones had to be completed sequentially based on who was doing what. And then I arrived at a timeline. So right now I'm expecting this to be completed around April 10th. Actually, correction, April 15th, okay, before it goes into QA. So this is where I can, build out a project and arrive at a deadline, or have a deadline and manage the constraints of it. And here, bring in more resources as needed. And then the last thing I wanted to show you here is all of the participants in this project. Now, some of these are fictional. I'm just going to remove them. Okay, and that is the project. So let's get into creating a new project. So when you create a new project, you'll click on here, big new button, okay, and you're going to give it a name. And we're going to call this project demo. Now, in this state, as I said, the deadline, sometimes you're going to know, sometimes you won't. Most times in my experience, you won't necessarily, but that really is industry specific. The important thing is to set the start date. So I'm going to say the start date is going to be Monday. Okay. And then here is create opportunity for this project. I'm not going to do that. nor am I going to run the project creation wizard. And let me just give you kind of a brief explanation, because we did some internal training on this, and it was really kind of a consensus that this is really only going to be used once or twice as you're learning the product, but it's going to walk you through each and every stage. And there's some advantages to that initial handholding, but more importantly, in my opinion, once you get used to the program, which is using it once or twice, it's really actually can bog you down. One of the things that I get frustrated by is if I'm using the wizard, and let's say I've got to leave my desk or attend to something else, that because it actually hasn't completed and written to the database, it can actually time out and create an error. That's irritating. Assignments can also be done in batches, okay, from scratch, but not from the wizard section. So that's kind of a time coster. Shortcuts like importing other projects in whole or in part are not available in the wizard. So you're kind of forced to go through a very, very methodical and not very efficient time-wise process by using the wizard. But as you getting to learn it initially, it can get really important. But this is why I strongly recommend removing this after you've had the first one or two. Okay. So now this is a pretty clear whiteboard. Okay. Now, as I said, you can see all the main component parts across the top. Let's set the goal. Okay. To demo the use of projects. Okay. Now, this may seem, and you can put a bunch of them. I only recommend one for most users. Now, this may seem like a needless project management hoop to jump through. It seems more, theoretical than practical, but it really is useful in defining the purpose of the project and preventing scope creep. By defining it at the beginning and getting alignment from all the participants, it really will help save you from creating a never-ending project. Okay, you've got to set a goal in order to have kind of an end zone. Okay, the second is participants, and I'm doing this in order. I said at the beginning that I was going to spell out how to build the project, what was the most efficient way. This is how I consider it to be the most efficient way. So let's review the participants. Participants are made up of both contacts and users in ACT and should be spelled out before preparing the task list. You can always add more participants later as the project evolves, but be sure to capture the core participants at this stage. So firstly, we click on add, we're going to see member or contact. Well, as the name suggests, the contact is a contact in ACT. This is typically going to be who the project is for. Okay, you're not going to be doing it for some unknown person. So who are you doing this project for, or on whose behalf? And then, so we'll type in, the ubiquitous Fred Fenderline, any part of the name. Okay, and you'll see that this is, as you add them to the list, there is no access. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in another member. Oh, sorry, contact. Okay, and I'm going to put in another fan favorite, Betty Browser. Okay, the other people that you can add in this, it doesn't just have to be the customers, it could be external participants. So this could be an outside contractor, IT staff, or other customers, employees, you name it. These people can all be given shared access to the project online, and they can then update the tasks that they're assigned. We're going to get into that more later. It's also useful to add even users as contacts. Now, let me just kind of get into this. If I wanted to click member, okay, I can see all the people that are eligible, based on my licensing, based on how I've configured my Act Advantage environment, all the people that I can add here. Now, the advantage of, and I got to be careful because that's going to sound redundant, but one of the benefits of having Act Advantage is that everyone that is, in an account with Professional or Ultimate is going to have login access to projects. Okay, ActAdvantage provides licensing to all the users, so it's up to the members. So each of the members can log in and add their own tasks to the project. That said, okay, unless members need to make additions to the project, I suggest making everyone a contact. This way, everyone can access the project, which we'll show you later through the secured share link, and record the progress, okay, as they go through the project. Most project managers, and this is just practical real world consideration, prefer not to have too many cooks in the kitchen. It is difficult to plan, as you saw when we're kind of scheduling out the deadline, plan when a project can end if people are kind of randomly adding in tasks on their own without clearing it with the project manager. So most project managers, certainly like myself, prefer not to have too many cooks in the kitchen. So the project changes and additions should go through them and be scheduled and assigned accordingly. Okay, so we're in the participant section. Okay, so while we've gone through this, okay, this is just adding people to the roster, but there's many additional features that this section has that will allow you to really enable just huge collaboration features. So let's get into that. While the participant section is not new, the color coding and features. So let's go into, I'll go into this for Fred, okay? So right now, I can assign a color, and I'm just gonna randomly pick a color. Now this seems, really kind of random, which color should I assign? Okay, so that's useful. Now what I'm going to do is I've got the ability to grant them access. Okay, so at this point, I click on here and I'm going to click on grant access. Now, by default, you're going to see that most things are revoked. Okay, and if you read here, by granting access, a unique link will be generated specifically for this contact to log in, okay, and view the project. I'm just going to read this. We're going to demonstrate this later. Please select additional permissions to give them, okay? Now, I said at the beginning that this was not going to be a feature tour, it was also going to be a practical application, okay? This is what I recommend. So modify assigned task status and progress. You can give them permission to assign dates, but that should be, really assigned judiciously. Okay, you want them to be able to view comments and read and reply as needed. Okay, goals, obstacles, attachments should be on a need to read basis only. This will suppress all the top menus, okay, if you don't give them access to this. View attachments, we're actually going to be considering the ability to have people upload attachments that are participants, but right now that isn't available. So, looking at this might be all that you need to apply. Okay, now watch what happens when I click on OK. This immediately, okay, has a check mark. Okay, now once we're done building the project, we are going to return to this section and I'll show you what that means. Okay, now then the next section is tasks. Okay, now we can go, the wizard would walk you through creating phases and tasks. And this is we can just click on new phase. Okay, and we'll just say phase 1. I can put an additional description here. Again, I can set the start date. Okay, status is always going to default to not started. The assignments are going to just be me as the single member. Okay, relations we're going to get into in a bit. Comments are self-evident, and then attachments as well. Okay, but right now this is a phase, so we're just going to view it kind of as a folder or a segment of it. Okay, now I'm just going to show you one phase and how to nest a task. So Whether you click here or click here, you'll see view details. This does the exact same thing. You click here to add in a task. So I could put in task 1, I can define it, I can set the from and to, but I'm not going to. I can assign the cost, estimated hours, okay? Now, as I do this, you're gonna see, we're gonna come back to this. This is actually a new section that you won't see currently, okay? But we should leave most of these things alone. The only thing that I'm gonna touch upon is as you spell this, I talked about the integration, okay? When you save this, just save this, okay? You can go back here and you can create a corresponding activity in ACT. You don't have to do it for all of them. You can do it one at a time, but you can create the corresponding activity in ACT. You don't want to do it at this point because we haven't assigned it. It doesn't know who to give it to. So right now, I'm just leaving it be like this, okay? But we're going to get back to that later. So again, relations, which we'll cover later, okay? You'll see here, one of the basic relations is, hey, it's nested under phase 1, okay? Now, as most projects have planning, execution, and review phases, you can use these as high-level phases or break the project into more intuitive phases, like a wedding would have a dress rehearsal, would have a ceremony, would have, you know, a photo session, reception, etc. There are no wrong answers here, just as long as it makes sense to you, okay, as you know, for your particular project, and helps you organize and segment the plan better. Okay. Now, to start, I went through, you know, you created a phase here, but what I want to do is I'm going to go back to the home. Okay. And I'm going to show you a, you know, a much more efficient way of doing this. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to delete this project. Gives me the option, even though I didn't create them, it gives me the option by default. Okay. So now I'm going to click on new and I'm going to say, okay. So the reason I wanted to kind of do this again is I'm going to show you what can really save you a lot of time. Now, some people are going to have every single project be bespoke, you know, starting from scratch, but many of the projects in our world are similar to past projects, and it can save a lot of time to borrow from other projects through the import feature, which you can see here. And this is only available if you go through the from scratch. Otherwise, you're going through the wizard and you'll likely end up having to delete stuff or overwrite stuff. So, you know, for us, you know, our hosting department repeats 90% of the same steps over and over again when onboarding a new customer to the cloud. A project planner that allows them to quickly import these steps into a new project and then add or subtract relevant parts is naturally going to save them a lot of time, and more importantly, avoid missing crucial steps. So let's do that. I'm going to click on import, and I'm going to say here, it's going to show me all of my past projects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know, let's select that help desk. Okay. Now, one of the things that I've got, I can import the whole project, or I can just import parts, and I can open them up and I can say, you know, let's select this. Okay. Selected phase, and then all selected subtasks, if any. Okay. Or I can just go in and I can just select a single thing, whichever. Okay. Now, when I go in here, I'm just going to say, we'll import one phase. Okay. And now I've got this, and you can expand it and see all the tasks here. Now let's watch what else I can do. I can go to a different project, select this, and again, select this section, and now it adds a phase from another project. Okay, so you can literally pick and choose and cobble together a project very, very quickly. Now, if I go to, the demo here, I could see that I've got 24 steps that are already built in. Now, if I go back, now I may want to go through here, remove ones that I don't need, okay, whichever. This is a very minor kind of nip and tuck process. I can also come in here, I can add, additional task to any particular phase that will be dropped to the bottom, okay? Either way, once I get all these tasks and phases listed here, there's only one last step in the task section before I move on to the next one, okay? Now, I said that I would kind of call out the new features, and this one seems really, really simple, but it is a huge time saver and is really an important step when you're planning a project. And that is setting the duration of each task, okay? Not the scheduling, the duration. So what this will typically involve, once you've got all the component parts here, all the phases and all the tasks, and you can add in individual ones here, like I said here, I could just add in, random task, poorly spelled, okay. And then it will add it here to the bottom. I can move it very easily up here by grabbing the little handles here, okay. Now, once I've got all of these here, I need to go through each one of them and understand in a general sense, how long are they going to take? So I work with developers. I'll break down the task list and I'll ask them what their estimations of the time are. So I'll go into each one and I'll say 2 days. I'll spell it off. Do not worry about the estimated hours. This is really a section that is not really about planning so much as cost calculation. So don't worry about estimated hours or costs. Okay, just put in the duration for each, and it's going to become pretty self-evident, okay, as you get into this, why it's important to break this down. Okay, you'll see there's always going to be one by default. Now, as I said, if you go into the project management feature right now, you will not see that days feature, but by adding that little days feature, what we do is it forces us to make sure that the to date is after this. Previously, if I put in here, okay, it would automatically, I would have to go in and set the to date, to be later because there wasn't any duration at this stage, okay? By adding this in and making sure that the to date is after the from date, you save a lot of tedious effort. And I know this is something maybe we should have caught on the first phase, but once we did it, you're going to find that this saves you a lot, because nothing's more tedious than adding in the from and the to, okay, as an extra needless step. So this little duration thing fixes that. Okay. Now, as I mentioned before, you can move up and down items here, but once we are done all these things here and changing the orders, but when you, like, let's say I go here, I add this in, I change the order of this, you'll note that the task list allows you to move items up and down, okay? And that's because the task list is for changing the order. And the Gantt, which we'll get into in a bit, allows you to drag tasks right to left for scheduling. The opposite is true for neither, okay? So you can't drag any task right to left in this section, and you can't drag scheduled items, okay, these things here up and down, okay, or yeah, up and down. They're only available right to left. And what does that mean? Why am I pointing this out? Because it speaks to the purpose. The distinction reflects the difference in the purpose of each. One is about setting the sequence and the other one is about scheduling, okay? Now, before we move on to the task list, or move from the task list to the Gantt, it's important to review the task assignments, because this is a very new feature, okay? Now, previously, in order to assign the task to everyone, you had to drill into each one and set the assignments, okay? So I had to go here, assignments, blah, blah, blah. But now I realize I got to go back in here, add a few contacts. Let's go sender line. And we'll add one more. Okay, so I'm going to set their color as I did before. And I know all of this seems like, why am I going through all these extra little hoops here? It'll become very apparent in this section, okay? And by the way, as I said before, color coding for each of the participants is a new feature. But now what we've done is we've signed this. Now we're going to grant access as I showed you before. So I'm going to say view, okay, and that's it. And now I'm going to click on grant access, and I'll just leave that one the same. Okay, now you'll see a check mark here. Now watch what happens when I click on the same edit button. Okay, I see a bunch of different options. I see the permissions that I assigned. I see the unique link, which we're going to get to in a minute. Okay, and I see the color coding. But because I kind of jumped around in order, or jumped around the order of here, we're supposed to cover the participants previously. I'm going to click on assignments now and show you one of the main new features to me that is just a huge time saver. Okay, so now what we did is, instead of going to each task individually and doing the assignments like we did here, going to click, okay, we'll say, okay, that would be really tedious. Okay. Now, instead, we can go into assignments, select a participant, and then batch assign all the things that they are supposed to do. Okay. And this saves tons of time. Now, when you click here, save change, and then you go back to Fred, you see they all clear. And the reason that this allows you to clear is that you can actually assign multiple people to each task this way, and very, very efficiently. Now, I know what some of you guys might be thinking. Okay, this is great. Okay, but what if I really want to remain task centric and I want to go through each task and assign people, all the people that are relevant to that task? Well, we have that option too. You see down here, swap panels. I can now, you see now that the tasks and phases have moved over to the left-hand side, and I can select one here and assign all the people that I want to each section. Okay, so what, in this case, I can set the task and do a batch assignments of the participants. Okay, this is all a new feature. If you go into the project management section of ActiveVantage, you won't even see the assignment section. Okay, but this is now available, and it's a huge time saver. Okay. Okay, so now, with all the tasks and phases created and assigned, okay, and the duration set, we're ready to move on to scheduling. Okay, and I'll show you why it's important to have done each of those things in advance and in the order that I spelled them out. Okay, so now here we've got our entire list of tasks. Okay. Okay, now watch what I can do. I've got the ability, because you can see how some of these are longer than the others. That's because we set the durations in advance. Okay, because of that, I'm able to say, okay, let's now, obviously it's starting me in the future, but let's pretend that this is actually the 6th. I can go here, I can move these around. Okay, bring them all in and bring this around. Now watch what happens when I move something. Take a look at the length of here. This automatically expands. Okay, now there are certain things here. You'll notice here that you've got the durations displayed. It doesn't reflect hours. Okay, it's reflecting, and some of these things were completed, so it brought in their status here. But you can see here, it's 2 days here, 3 days there, and it's showing you it's calculating the total duration. Okay, so this is a huge time saver. I'm just going to move this over like this. Okay, you can see now this particular project, okay, or this phase here has expanded to cover it. Okay, so this is why we do the durations of each task in advance, because otherwise I wouldn't know when one task should end and the next one begins, because to me they all look like they're single units of measure, which is obviously not accurate in real time. Okay, so this allows me to map it out, and this is why I was saying, if I am looking at this and trying to determine how I work with certain timelines, I can do so. Okay, now one of the things that you will see here is you see these little white lines, okay, and red lines here. What this is, it's showing the colors of the participants. Now, why do I need the colors of the participants? Well, if I'm working with a hard deadline, I may want to know which tasks I can assign concurrently, which means if this task and this task are being done by different people, I'm going to see that based on the color coding. Now, in this case, I can very clearly see that I've got a white bar and a white bar. Okay, so I have to plan them sequentially. Okay, and the reason that these color codings are important is that as I look down here, I can't see who the assignees are. Okay, you can't have too many columns here, otherwise you won't have enough room for a Gantt unless you've got a massive screen at high res. So this allows me to very easily and intuitively understand which tasks I can schedule concurrently or sequentially. Okay, now white will always be the default color. If I go into assignments again here, okay, you'll notice that under participants, the default color, I'm going to just say, let's just say this one's going to be blue. Okay, you can now see it changes to blue, and now blue is throughout. Now, obviously, I have done this very rapidly. I've not assigned them with any meaning in mind. So, I'm not able to look at this chart particularly well and gather, what time can be saved. But if I go over to a production one, I could very clearly see that this particular developer is working on all of these. And I can see here that this is being done by one developer, and this green indicates being done by another developer. So I can schedule them at the exact same time. Okay. Now, what are you seeing different about this Gantt versus the one that I showed you earlier? The little arrows. Well, let's go back and show what that means. In the real world, when you are planning certain projects, certain tasks have to be completed before another task can be done. It could be, one of my developers has to complete a step before another developer can take over, whichever. Those are called dependencies. One task has to be completed before another one can be started. In project management, let me show you how easy that is to draw out. I simply go over here, I brush my mouse over, and this little dot appears. I grab it and I drag it and connect it there. That's it. Okay. And if I've made a mistake and it's like, oh, that isn't a useful dependency anymore, I can go in here, click on relations, and just remove it. Okay. And then it goes away. But let's put it back. And let's actually map them all together. And I'll show you in a bit why that is useful. Okay, so now I'm not going to get into the second tier because I just imported that randomly. Remove this from view. But let's say there's a delay in the project, okay, right at the beginning. So this is completed, but this, for whatever reason, the developer involved or the participant involved can't start until here. What I can do is I can move this over here, and then everything moves along in lockstep. I can move this around, okay, and see, and move all these different things, and it can be a real time saver, okay? So that is how easy the Gantt is to work with, arriving at timelines, knowing when to move things up or when to schedule things, okay? And okay, so we've moved things around. Now let's go back to the participants. Because as the project manager, I have now gone to the trouble of spelling out all the phases, all the tasks. I have now scheduled them. I have now assigned them, but I'm the only one that can see it, okay? And the key to this program is collaboration. So now I got to get Fred and Betty involved. How am I going to do that? Well, I can click on here and it will automatically, because I pulled it in from ACT, Fred, I know Fred Fenderline's email, okay, the subject, it automatically prepares this little demo line, and it creates a secure link for them to use, okay? I click on send and it will go. Now, I'm not going to click on send because I haven't set up my email features, but I can also go back in here just to kind of show you this section, and I can click on copy link and just reply to an email and email them separately. Now, you can see all the permissions here. We've covered that, but let's see another feature because I can copy this. Now, let's say you've gone through the project and you've got to replace someone, okay? And now you've got a security risk where, you know, you've got someone out there that is no longer involved in the project that you want to cut off their access. All you've got to do is click on generate a new link, and this will then replace the new link. Are you sure you want to create a new access link? The contact will no longer be able to use the old link. You bet. Just by doing that, you've cut off their access. Okay. So again, you've got that security feature built in. Now, I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to click on close, and I'm going to bring up Chrome. The reason I'm bringing up Chrome is that a lot of the Act Advantage and Linktivity features use cookies, and when you open up multiple sessions within the same browser, you can actually create errors. So I'm going to go into it now. What do we see immediately? We see that I don't have a little home button. I only see the demo, and I only see overview, task, schedule, and comments, okay? The other thing here is I can see here that, you know, Fred can clear this, but this one is assigned to me, so Fred can't touch this one, okay? Fred can, again, but here, Fred is part of this one, so Fred can either click into this and he can, you know, make the comments, okay? He can get in, he can change the status, or if it's a binary thing going from, you know, not started to completed, he clicks on here and it's done, okay? If you want to keep track of it, you just click on show completed tasks and you will now see this cleared. Now, if I go back, okay, to my scheduler, I'm going to see that this is done. Okay, this has been cleared automatically. Okay, that's the beauty of the collaboration with this. Okay, so I have now sent out a link. It allows me to engage the customer in the project as a participant. So even if I don't need them to do anything, I want to be accountable to them, and I'm going to show them, because a lot of the times they won't have visibility on my team completing a project. So if they are being onboarded into cloud, I can send them a project link. They can see what they have to do or what we're doing and when we're doing it, and they know exactly that things are happening. That gives people a very strong comfort that they're being handled professionally. It also allows you to engage the third parties like tradespeople, because sometimes in our business we have to work with IT staff, or in the wedding example of our venue coordinators, things like that. So this empowers each participant that is not a member of your ACT group to clear, update, change the status, add comments to all of these different tasks that only they're assigned to. Okay, it creates, as I said, clear and professional accountability with your customer. And this level of collaboration allows the participants to move the project themselves towards completions, and coordinates with each other when dependent tasks are completed. No more emailing each other and running communications through the project manager. Okay, all of these things can be done independently. So let's just do a quick recap. The beginning part is we set the goal. Okay, I didn't do a goal in this case because it was a demo of the goal. Okay, then we set the participants. Okay, then we set the phases and the tasks, all here. Okay, then we assign those tasks with this new feature here. Okay, and if I wanted to be task centric, I can do it this way and do batch assignments of the participants to each task. Okay, then I'm going to use the Gantt to schedule the each part of the project. And then finally, as I just showed you, okay, I'm going to go back to the participants, and I'm going to distribute the share links, the unique share links, so that they can all participate in the project. Okay, now at this point, you've completed the essential parts of a collaborative project. And while there are other parts that are necessary, these are the main features that you need. Okay, but let's kind of get into briefly. We'll just do a kind of a quick overview of some of the other features, because some of you are probably looking around and saying, okay, there are other sections here. The first one, okay, that I want to talk about is milestones. So let's go back to my demo. What is a milestone? Okay, you'll see over here this little diamond thing. I pointed this out at the beginning. This diamond, there are certain sections of all projects where, let's say you need approval for costing at a particular stage, or you need venue confirmation, or you need to sync up and do a preliminary demo to see where the project's at. This would be a milestone. It doesn't have any duration, but it's a very clear indication on the schedule where everyone needs to sync up, verify in order to continue. Now, what is a milestone? Well, a milestone is essentially a task with this little milestone check mark. It doesn't have to have any assignees or anything like that. It's just a call out in the calendar. Okay, I find them really, really useful. And also, they can be used for the next section that I wanted to show you, which was obstacles. Obstacles, this doesn't have a component part of tasks. It's not something that you're going to view on the calendar, but something that you want to kind of just jot down all the different things that could potentially bugger you up on the project. Okay, now whether it's budgeting, whether or not it's the availability of participants, whether or not it's venue access, anything along those lines, it is a useful exercise to list all the ones that your team can come up with. Is it something that's necessary to build and share and complete a collaborative project? No, but it is a useful section to review. Now, the reason I'm mentioning them in this order is if you need to see obstacles in your calendar, I recommend using the milestones for that, because the milestones will allow you to actually see an obstacle in your calendar and plan accordingly. The next section is kind of self-explanatory, and that is comments. Now, When it says show project comments only, this will say here, if I want to do a comment at the project level, which is here, then it's going to, this little radio button will show me only those. But if I want to clear it and say, show me all the comments, then comments that I'm making inside of a task or phase will also appear here. It will show, you remember when I put in the test one, it will show the author, the time, everything else, okay? The timeline is kind of like the Facebook reference. It shows you everything, every single task or stage, okay? Every single step. It can be a little tedious to go through, but you've got like a forensic breakdown of every single step in the project, okay, as it was completed and updated. So, okay, at this point, we have all the pieces in place for a working project. So let me just kind of quickly show you what you can do now. So with all of this, let's click on Overview. Okay, you can see the percentage of completion. You can see the milestones when they're coming up. You can see the tasks that are assigned to you. Okay, you can see if there's any unassigned tasks. Clearly, we've assigned them all. Okay, it's showing you task status by phase. It's showing you all the different breakdowns of each phase and all its component parts, task by priority, so on and so forth. A complete breakdown of the project. Okay, I showed you the color coding and how that's useful to allow you to schedule different tasks either concurrently or sequentially. Okay, I've showed you how to moving the dependent task will move the other ones ahead of it. Okay, and that allows you to really either set a deadline or work within an existing one. Okay, now we're getting close to the end. We expect these new features. I've talked many times that these new features are not available. And now that we've seen them a little bit, if I was to go into one here, okay, we can see here that we don't have assignments. Okay, we don't have some of the other features that we've seen. If we click on here, we don't have the days. So these features, excuse me, participants, okay, if I go into here, okay, you can see here that participants don't have, like if you look at your, and this is why I like to use contacts and not members. Here, it forces everyone to log in. They don't get a unique link because they've got to go in through ACT to get it, okay? And in this case, if I do grant access, okay, you'll see the absence of the color. And you saw the usefulness of colors in the Gantt, allowing you to kind of move things around, okay? Now, very quickly, let me just show you or kind of run down the features that we'll be adding. So we're going to be adding more advanced reporting. We're going to be adding more filtering on the tasks. So you'll be able to maybe filter by assignee, things like that. Creating projects from an existing opportunity. So we'll be able, instead of just creating that one-way right to ACT by creating an opportunity, you'll be able to pull in an opportunity, okay? We'll have custom columns in the Gantt here, so we'll be able to add additional ones if needed, okay? Here under the participants, we'll have the ability to just say, copy the share link without, that'll save a click. We're also going to have here where people can upload the attachments, okay, from a share link. Exporting and importing projects as JSON files. So let's say I've got another ACT user that's built a project. He can actually send it over to me as a JSON file. JSON files are actually used in AMA, where you can send something out as a JSON file and import in a template, from a JSON file. And then exporting and importing projects as Excel files. I can't give you a firm deadline. We expect these things to be built sometime around May. Hopefully we can get them into Q2. But those are the features we expect to have covered, okay? I've been talking for an hour. Let me quickly pull up this and let me enable people's mics. And let's review the questions. Okay, so I'm going to go through these questions here. Okay, do staff participants need to be users? Nope, if I guess I probably answered this question afterwards. If you name a contact, remember all users are also a contact, okay? So you can name a user a contact as part of the participant list and they won't be able to log in. But as I said, me as a project manager, I don't want to have it too many cooks in the kitchen and having people just randomly adding in tasks or phases that can fundamentally change my planning and timeline and deadlines for the project, okay? Okay, I've got someone said I have a basic rudimentary knowledge of ACT and how we can use it in our business. It works very well for us in general. I have no idea what ACT Advantage is. Okay, so great question. ACT Advantage, if you have become an ACT customer of ACT Premium Cloud over the last few years, last April, there was an evolution to that where ACT Premium Cloud added in a bunch of features that we built. They purchased them from us, from Keystroke, and added them in to become ACT Advantage. Now, that's an overly simplistic way of describing it because there are other components like accounting integration, and there's tiered features of ACT Marketing Automation, but that's the basic component of it. So if you've got ACT Premium Cloud, then you do not see this feature here. If you've got ACT Advantage, then you will see this feature and you will see these available to you. If you are a standard ACT Advantage customer, you will not see the project management, okay? So I hope that seems, that's straightforward. If you have any questions, if I didn't answer your question directly enough, please email me, ken@kqc.ca, and I will respond, okay? Okay, so that is all the questions that I see. I've opened the mic. So are there any questions before we wrap up? Is there an automated way to prevent a task from being scheduled on a weekend? Not currently. That's going to in my list of things to add is to automatically bypass that. I'm not sure. I got to talk to the developer about the complexity of that, but that's why we make it visible, on the Gantt so that you can manually schedule it around. But good question, Brent. Okay. Any other questions? We are at our time limit. Okay. I'm really appreciative of you guys joining us today. This was we've been building towards this for most of the last month. I believe that this program is really at a place where it can save a lot of people time. Remember, project management, I mean, just looking at some of the companies out there, they have that are the bigger players in there have 3 billion or more market valuation. This is not a proof of concept that we have to sell anymore. And just to let you guys know, ACT tracks how different programs are accessed through ACT Advantage, and project management, even though it's available in only the second and third tier, according to its tracking, it's consistently in the top 3 or 4 of the programs that people are using and kicking the tires of. So this is something that we really feel it's important to improve, because we've seen project management softwares out there that have gone into CRM. I think it's actually more sensible to come from a CRM and move into project management, as you've seen. Now, as I said at the beginning, if people want to go out there and take the Pepsi challenge and compare, this project management to some of the other well-known ones out there, that's great. We are not looking to make the case that we're best of breed. What we're looking to make the case for is ease of use and the advantages, and again, forgive the pun, the advantages of the integration, which allows us to have that collaboration, have that time efficiency, have all the people that are going to participate in the project, both contacts and users, available to us at a quick click, okay? And being able to, push all of those details over to an opportunity or over to the calendar as I demonstrated, okay? Terrific. Thank you guys. I feel great that we covered all the parts that I wanted to, and again, covered them in the order that I think will make sense to most of you guys as project planners. I hope that you've gotten a lot out of this. If you, for all those that have registered, we'll prepare the demo link. I'm on vacation right now, doing a poor impression of that anyway, and we'll try to get you the recording link either tomorrow or early next week. So for now, thank you all, and we'll talk to you soon.